I sold my house for my granddaughter's education in the best medical university in the country. The family nest where I had lived my whole life. $60,000, everything I had. A red diploma. Graduation day. Around us. Parents in suits worth tens of thousands of dollars. Golden watches. Conversations about yachts and villas. And me, in the only worn-out suit I had been wearing for 20 years. I walked up to my granddaughter to congratulate her, and I heard her introduce me to her wealthy friends as a distant relative from the provinces. Then she quietly asked, "Grandpa, please leave. Don't shame me with the way you look." I turned around and headed for the exit, but when my granddaughter saw who rushed to escort me, but let's start from the very beginning. I woke up to the creak of floorboards in the next room. The clock showed 4 in the morning. It was still dark outside, and my granddaughter was already wandering around the house. For the third week in a row, Paloma hadn't been sleeping at night, leafing through manuals, scribbling numbers, whispering calculations. "Abuelo," she called softly through the thin wall. "Are you awake?" "I'm awake, darling. Come here." A disheveled girl appeared in the doorway, wearing an old pair of pajamas. On her knees, a thick folder of documents. Her eyes were red from sleepless nights but burned with feverish fire. "Grandpa, I've been calculating all night. If I get into the National University on a state scholarship, I'll only need money for living expenses in the capital, at least $500 a month. But if I have to pay tuition," her voice faltered, "$8,000 a year. For 6 years, that's $48,000. I sat down on the bed. Yesterday, my son had come home from the factory, grim as a cloud. Once again, salaries were delayed, and there were talks of layoffs. Consuelo had already been working 1.5 shifts at the kindergarten for a month, getting home at 9 in the evening. "Paloma, isn't the local medical school good enough?" "Abuelo!" Paloma jumped up, clutching the folder to her chest. "You don't understand. The local one is just the provinces. They train paramedics for small clinics. But the National University, that's the elite. Only the best of the best get in. World-renowned doctors teach there." She started pacing the room, waving her hands. "Do you realize the difference between a surgeon in our district clinic and a professor in the capital? When I had appendicitis, our local doctor couldn't diagnose me for 2 days. But the doctor from the capital hospital knew instantly what was wrong. I remember those terrible days. Paloma writhing in pain, her fever near 40 degrees, while Dr. Faustino shrugged. Maybe food poisoning, maybe the flu. Luckily, our neighbor's wife worked in emergency services and called in a surgeon she knew. "Abuelo," Paloma sat down on the edge of the bed, holding my hands in hers. "I can't miss this chance. Do you understand? If I don't take the risk now, I'll regret it all my life. I'll end up a district doctor, giving shots and writing sick notes. But I want to save lives. I want to be a doctor like the one who saved me." Her voice was filled with such passion, such conviction, that my heart clenched. I remembered myself at 18, dreaming of leaving our small town, applying to a technical institute in the capital. But then the economic crisis came, then the responsibility of supporting my family, marriage, children. My dreams never left the ground. "All right," I said quietly. "Apply. We'll figure something out." Paloma hugged me so tightly I almost couldn't breathe. "Thank you. I love you so much. I promise I won't let you down." When she ran back to her room to make plans, I lay awake for a long time. Dawn was breaking outside, roosters crowing, and I kept thinking where I could find the money for Paloma's education. At breakfast, my granddaughter, eyes shining, told her parents about her plans. "Mom, Dad, I've decided. I'm applying to the capital, to the best medical university in the country." Leandro choked on his coffee. "Paloma, do you understand how much that costs?" "I do. I've calculated everything. If I get a scholarship—" "And if you don't," Consuelo interrupted, "competition is insane there. Children of politicians and businessmen apply." "I will," Paloma said fervently. "I've got excellent grades, Olympiad results, high exam scores." "But even if you do get in on a scholarship," Leandro shook his head, "living in the capital is expensive. Dorm, food, textbooks, transport. At least $500 a month. Over 6 years, that's... He paused, counting. Almost $40,000. And if it's paid? Consuelo asked quietly. Then more than 60,000, I answered. Silence fell. $60,000. More than my son would earn in his entire lifetime. Maybe we could take a loan, Consuelo suggested. For 20 years? With my salary? Leandro gave a bitter smile. $300 a month? That's more than half of what I make. Paloma sat with her head down. Tears were dripping onto the uneaten eggs and beans. So that's it then, she whispered. My dream will just stay a dream. And that's when I said, what if we sell the house? Everyone froze. Forks hung in midair, and Consuelo dropped her cup. Dad, what are you saying? Leandro stared at me with frightened eyes. I'm saying we sell the house. It's a good one, in the city center with a large lot. We could get $60,000 for it, maybe more. Father, are you serious? Consuelo had gone pale. But that's our house. Your house. Grandpa's house. Abuelo, no! Paloma grabbed my hand. I can't take your house from you. I got up from the table and walked to the window. In the yard stood the old mango tree my father had planted. Next to it, the swing I had built first for my children, then for my granddaughter. In the corner, the doghouse where Lobo had lived before he passed away last year. Paloma, I said without turning around, look at this house. What do you see? I see our home, our hearth, our nest. And I see walls. Bricks, wood, metal. A house isn't just walls, my dear. A house is the people inside it. And you're my granddaughter, my flesh and blood. Your future matters more than old walls. But Dad, Leandro stood up and paced across the kitchen. This is our family home. Mom died here. You've lived here your whole life. Paloma grew up here. Exactly, son. This house has seen so much happiness. Now let it bring happiness to our girl. Abuelo, Paloma came over and hugged me. But what if I don't get in? What if I can't handle the studies? What if I never become a doctor? I turned to her and placed my hands on her shoulders. You will. I believe in you. And the house will wait. Maybe one day you'll build a new one, a better one. Consuelo was crying, wiping her tears with her apron. Leandro stood leaning against the wall silent, and Paloma looked at me with eyes full of tears, in gratitude. I won't let you down, Abuelo, I promise. I know, my dear, I know. The next day, I went to a real estate agency. A young woman at a computer listened to me and nodded. Houses in the city center are selling well right now, especially ones with large lots. People from the capital are buying them as country homes. We can list it for $55,000 to $60,000. I need 60, I said firmly. Not a cent less. We'll see, she smiled. We'll take photos, post the listing. I think we can sell it within a month. A week later, potential buyers started coming. The first were local businessmen, wanted to convert it into an office. I sent them away. This house wasn't built for an office, I grumbled. It was built for people. Then a young couple came from a neighboring state. They walked around admiring the place, measuring the rooms. It's beautiful here, the woman said. Quiet, green, perfect for raising a child. And why are you selling? Her husband asked. I paused, then answered. My granddaughter needs money for her education. She's applying to medical school. I see, the man nodded. Education's expensive these days. But in the end, they didn't buy, said it was too pricey. 3 weeks later, people from the capital arrived. A latest model SUV, expensive suits, gold watches. We're looking for a country house, explained a woman in her 40s. Somewhere to get away on weekends, enjoy nature. A country house, I winced. What had been a whole life for my family, to them was just a weekend getaway. They inspected for a long time meticulously. Checked the utilities, measured every room, peered into every corner. It's a solid house, the man said. You can tell it was built with care. We'll take it for $55,000. $60,000, I replied firmly. No bargaining. Grandpa, be reasonable, the woman smiled. The economy's rough. Prices are dropping. I'm not selling, I looked her straight in the eye. I'm buying. What are you buying? My granddaughter's future, and it's worth exactly $60,000. The city buyers exchanged glances and agreed. A week later, the deal was scheduled. I walked through the house saying goodbye to every room: the kitchen where my wife used to cook family dinners, the living room where we celebrated Christmas, the nursery where first Leandro and later Paloma grew up. On the walls hung photographs: our wedding, the birth of my son, my granddaughter's first steps. My entire family's life was within those walls. "Dad, maybe we should reconsider," Leandro asked one last time. "We could take out a loan, somehow manage 20 years in debt?" I shook my head. "No, son, this is the right way." On the day of the deal, I woke up early, walked around the house, and said goodbye to every corner. I stood in the garden beneath the mango tree. "Forgive me, old girl," I said to the tree. "Others will take care of you now." The notary was a middle-aged woman in a strict suit. There were piles of documents: contracts, certificates, statements. "Silvestre Ramirez," she said as I signed the final paper. "May I ask why you're selling? It's a good house, clearly a family home." "My granddaughter's going to medical school," I replied. "We need the money." "And does she know the price you're paying?" "She knows." "And she agrees?" I paused. "Does it matter if she agrees? This isn't her decision. It's mine. I'm the grandfather. I've decided." The buyers were satisfied. The money was transferred to my account the same day. $60,000. More than I had ever seen in my life. "When do you need to vacate?" the buyer asked. "By September 1st, I said, "before the academic year begins." That evening, we sat in the house that was no longer ours. Paloma wept, her face buried in my shoulder. "Forgive me, abuelo. Forgive me for making you lose your home because of me." "Don't be silly," I stroked her hair. "A house is just walls. Family is people. As long as we're together, we'll always have a home." Paloma applied to 5 universities, but her whole heart was set on only one: the National University. She took her exams in the capital, staying in a hostel near the campus. Every evening, she called home. "Abuelo, today I took chemistry. I think I did okay, but the competition is crazy. Can you imagine? In my group, there's a girl who's the daughter of the Minister of Health, and a boy whose father is the chief physician of the capital's central hospital." "Don't think about others," I reassured her. "Think about yourself. You're smart. You'll make it." And you know what's strange? Many applicants whisper among themselves about how much money they brought, whose connections are helping. They say it's impossible to get in without ties. "Nonsense," I said sharply. "It takes brains, not money." But secretly, I worried. What if they were right? What if connections were needed? What if we had sold the house for nothing? The results were announced at the end of July. Paloma was accepted on a state scholarship, but with a condition: the evening program. To transfer to the full-time track, she would have to pay $3,000 a year. "What should we do?" she asked over the phone. "Transfer, of course," I answered without hesitation. "You must study full-time." "But that's another $15,000 over 5 years." "We have the money. Study without worry." In August, we moved into a 2-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. After the big house, it felt like a box, but I didn't complain. "It's fine, we'll get used to it," I said as I arranged familiar furniture in unfamiliar walls. "The main thing is that Paloma will study in the capital." And Paloma really did study. In September, she went to the capital, moved into a dormitory, and began to gnaw at the granite of medical science. For the first months, she called every day. "Abuelo, you can't imagine. The university is enormous, like a whole city. And the professors, they're world-renowned scientists. Today's lecture was by a professor who performs heart transplants." "How's the studying?" "Hard, but fascinating. Anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, so much to memorize. But I'm managing, though some classes are in Latin, and my Latin isn't very good." "You'll learn," I encouraged her. "You're a clever girl." You know what's surprising? My classmates are all so different. There are ordinary kids from the provinces like me, and then there are the children of the rich, with expensive cars, fashionable clothes, eating at restaurants every day. What matters is studying, not appearances. "Of course, abuelo, but you know sometimes I feel awkward. When everyone goes to a cafe and I can only afford the cafeteria. Or when they talk about where they're going for vacation and I'm just going back home to our little town. I heard something new in her voice. Not shame, but a trace of unease. Paloma, don't feel self-conscious. You're no worse than anyone else. I know, abuelo. It's just that this is another world. And to survive in it, you have to fit in. After that conversation, I couldn't fall asleep for a long time. What did it mean? To fit in. When Paloma came home for winter break, she was different. Not outwardly, though she dressed more fashionably now, and her hairstyle was new. Something inside her had changed. How are you, Paloma? I asked. Grandfather, everyone calls me by my full name now, she corrected me. Just Paloma sounds a little childish. All right, Paloma. How's school? Excellent. I'm in the top 10 in my class. The professors praise me, say I have real talent for medicine. She told her stories differently now, quickly with lots of unfamiliar terms, constantly mentioning different people. And then there's Edgardo Montoya. His father's a cardiac surgeon, owns his own clinic downtown. Can you imagine? And Jimena Castillo, she's a senator's daughter. She has the latest model BMW. So what? Leandro asked. What do you mean, so what, Dad? Those are connections, opportunities. In medicine, everything depends on who you know, who you talk to, what circles you move in. And before it used to depend on being able to heal, I said quietly. Paloma looked at me with a hint of irritation. Grandpa, times have changed. It's not enough anymore to just know how to heal. You also have to present yourself correctly, move in the right circles. What circles? Well, elite circles, among successful, influential people. And what? We're not successful, I asked. Paloma hesitated. Grandpa, you have a different kind of success. Honest work, family values. That's important too. But in modern medicine, there are different rules. What rules? You see, to become a good doctor, it's not enough to just study well. You need to get into the right clinic, under the right supervisor, and for that, you need connections. At lunch, she spoke about her new friends, all of them children of wealthy or powerful people. We often get together, talk about the future. We plan where we'll do internships, which professors we'll work with. And the ordinary students? Consuelo asked. The ones from regular families? What about them? They'll stay ordinary. They'll end up as district doctors in provincial clinics. And what's wrong with that? I set my fork down. District doctors are needed too. Grandpa, I don't want to spend my life giving vaccinations and writing sick notes. I want to practice real medicine, complex surgeries, scientific research. And what? They don't operate in district hospitals? Paloma was silent for a while, then said, They do, of course, but it's another level. I want to work in the best clinics with the best equipment to treat. She trailed off. To treat whom? I asked quietly. Well, everyone, of course, just to treat properly, professionally. There was something insincere in her voice. I felt it, but I said nothing. On the last day of break, I decided to have a heart-to-heart talk with my granddaughter. I called her into my room. Paloma, I want to ask you something. Do you remember why you wanted to go to medical school? Of course I remember. To become a doctor. And why did you want to become a doctor? She paused, thinking, to heal people. What people? All people, Grandpa. Why are you asking these questions? Do you remember Dr. Aurelio, the one who saved you from appendicitis? I remember. He worked in an ordinary regional hospital, not in an elite clinic, and he saved your life. Back then, you said you wanted to be like him. Paloma stood up and went to the window. Grandpa, I was a child then. Now I understand that modern medicine is a complex field. To succeed in it, you have to think strategically. Strategically? I didn't understand. Yes, choose the right specialization, find a good academic supervisor, get into a prestigious clinic. And where do the sick people fit into this strategy? The sick? Paloma turned around. What about them? They're the whole point, the people you'll be treating. Of course, Grandpa. They'll be treated properly, professionally, in good clinics with modern equipment. For a lot of money? Grandpa, quality medicine can't be free. Good doctors, expensive equipment, the latest treatment methods, all of it costs money. And those who don't have money? Paloma was silent for a moment, then said, there are public hospitals for them. Like the one where Dr. Aurelio worked. Yes, like that. And you don't want to go there? Grandpa, I'm getting an elite education. Why would I work in an ordinary hospital? I looked at my granddaughter for a long time. Then I said quietly, I see. So we sold the house so you could treat only the rich. Grandpa, you don't understand. I understand, Paloma. I understand everything. I no longer corrected myself. I simply called her by her name. In her second year, Paloma came home less and less often. During summer break, she stayed only a week. She said she was doing an internship at a capital clinic. It's very important for my resume, she explained over the phone. The more prestigious internships, the better for my future career. And what about rest? Consuelo asked. You've been studying all year. Mom, rest is a luxury I can't afford. The competition is enormous. Anyone who slows down gets left behind. In her third year, she didn't even come for my birthday. She called instead, Grandpa, happy birthday. I'm sorry I can't come. I have exams, course papers to defend. It's a very important time. That's all right, my dear, study. Grandpa, can you send me some money for clothes? Compared to my classmates, I look like, well, you understand. I'll send it, I said, though I had been cutting back on everything those past months. After the call, I sat in the kitchen for a long time with the phone in my hand. Consuelo noticed my mood. Papa, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong, just, do you remember what Paloma was like when she applied? I remember, she cried then, because you were selling the house for her. And now she just asks for money as if it's her due. In her fourth year, Paloma came for the May holidays. She looked wonderful, elegant, well-groomed, confident, but she spoke to the family as if we were distant acquaintances, polite but detached. How are you, daughter? Consuelo asked. Wonderful, Mama. I'm now the class representative in the surgery department. It's a very prestigious position. And do you know how to treat patients yet? I asked. Grandpa, in the fourth year, it's too early to talk about practical treatment. We're studying theory, mastering modern approaches, getting acquainted with methodology. At the table, she spoke about her student life, mostly about parties, trips, acquaintances. Last weekend, we went to Osvaldo's villa. His father's a senator, can you imagine? A villa outside the city with a pool and tennis court. A very interesting company gathers there. And what, have you abandoned your studies? Leandro asked. Dad, you don't understand. In modern medicine, it's not only knowledge that matters. Connections matter, networking, the ability to communicate with the right people. And before, doctors were respected for their ability to heal, I remarked. Grandpa, times have changed. Now it's not enough just to heal. You also need to know how to present yourself, make an impression, attract potential employers. What employers? Well, owners of private clinics, chief doctors of prestigious hospitals. My future career depends on them. And it doesn't depend on the sick? Paloma frowned. Grandpa, of course patients are important, but first you have to build a career, get into a good clinic, then you can treat them. I see, I nodded. First career, then people. You don't understand, Paloma's voice carried irritation. It's not first career, it's the right professional approach. To treat well, you need to work in a good clinic with modern equipment in a team of professionals. Dr. Aurelio treated without all that. Grandpa, Dr. Aurelio is the past century. Modern medicine is different. That visit, she stayed only 2 days. She left saying she had an important conference. In her 5th year, Paloma didn't come at all. She only called to wish us a Merry Christmas. Grandpa, Dad, Mom, Merry Christmas. Sorry I can't come. I have an internship in a private clinic. It's very important for my future employment. Paloma, we miss you, said Consuelo. And I miss you too, Mom. But please understand, this is the decisive year. My whole future career is being determined right now. After the call, I sat in my chair in silence. Leandro came up to me. Dad, don't you think we're losing our daughter? No, son. We've already lost her. What's left is Paloma. the successful medical student. And in her 6th year, the thing we had all secretly feared, but never said aloud, happened. The invitation to her graduation arrived by post a month before the ceremony, a beautiful card on expensive paper with golden embossing and official seals. Dear Ramirez family, you are invited to the solemn graduation ceremony of the National University Faculty of Medicine. Date, June 25th. Time, 11 o'clock. Venue, University Assembly Hall. Dress code, strictly formal. Sincerely, Paloma Ramirez. I read the invitation several times. Sincerely, before, Paloma had always signed letters with love or your Palomita. Now it was official, dry. Of course we'll go, I told Leandro and Consuelo. It's her graduation. We've been waiting 6 years for this day. Dad, but are we suitable? Leandro looked at me uncertainly. Look, the dress code is formal. And what do we have? Old suits and a dress from 10 years ago. They invited us not to look at our clothes, I answered, but to congratulate our daughter. But inside, I understood my son's fears. Over these years, we had become even poorer. The money from selling the house had gone to Paloma's education and living expenses. Leandro was still working as a turner at the same factory, his salary unchanged. Consuelo had transferred to another kindergarten. They paid $50 more, but she had to cross the entire city to get there. I pulled out my only suit, the dark blue one I had worn to every celebration for the last 20 years. It was worn, especially at the elbows, but it was clean and pressed. Consuelo went through her wardrobe and chose a black dress. She had bought it for her teacher's college graduation, more than 20 years ago. The style was outdated, of course, but what could be done? Maybe we should at least buy something new, she suggested to her husband. With what money? Leandro showed his wallet. We barely have enough for bus tickets to the capital, and we've saved some for a gift for Paloma. It doesn't matter, I said. The important thing is that we're there to support our granddaughter. Clothes are secondary. On the morning of June 25th, we got up at 4 a.m. and took a bus to the capital. I brought a bouquet, bought from our neighbor who grew roses for sale. Simple flowers, but fresh and beautiful. The capital overwhelmed us with its scale, the crowds of people, the grandeur of the buildings. I held the paper with the address tightly and tried not to get lost in the stream of people. Dad, maybe we should take a taxi, Leandro suggested, seeing how hard the road was for me. No, we'll take the metro. We'll save the money. The university overwhelmed us with its luxury. A huge building in the very center of the city, marble columns, gilded reliefs, wide staircases. Expensive cars stood at the entrance. Mercedes, BMW, Audi. Goodness, Consuelo whispered. So this is where our Paloma studied. Beautiful, Leandro agreed, but a bit too pompous. In the assembly hall, several hundred people had gathered. Parents, relatives, friends of the graduates. I looked around and immediately realized we didn't belong here. Men in expensive suits from famous designers, women in couture dresses, jewelry worth more than several of my yearly pensions. They spoke in a particular language, a mix of Spanish and English, full of medical and business terms. My Soledad will be doing her residency in Miami, I overheard, and Edgardo already got into his father's private clinic. Cipriano plans to open his own practice. Dad, are we really in the right place? Leandro whispered. Don't think about that, I answered. We came to support our girl. We found seats in the last rows. I placed the bouquet on my lap and waited for the ceremony to begin. The rector, a dignified man in an academic gown, spoke of the high mission of doctors, of the responsibility the graduates were taking on, of the traditions of the university. Dear graduates, he said, you have received the best medical education in the country. Now it is your duty to bring this knowledge to the people, to serve the nation's health, to be worthy of the oath you will take today. I listened, nervous. Soon they would call Paloma. Paloma Ramirez, finally the familiar name. Diploma with honors, recommendation for residency. I jumped up and started applauding. A young woman stepped onto the stage, in an elegant suit, with perfect hair and flawless makeup. She walked confidently toward the rector, smiling a polished, professional smile. Our girl, whispered Consuelo, tears in her eyes. But as I looked at the stage, I barely recognized my granddaughter. Not only her appearance, though she had indeed changed a lot. I didn't recognize her movements, her manner, her expression. This woman was beautiful, successful, confident. But where was my little Palomita? After the official part came the reception. A huge hall, tables laden with food, waiters with trays, live music. We stood by the wall, Leandro, Consuelo, and I, feeling out of place. Around us, high society buzzed. Parents of graduates were networking, exchanging business cards, making plans for joint ventures. I caught fragments. And where will your daughter be working? We're thinking of opening a family clinic. We have an interesting investment proposal in healthcare. Maybe we should find Paloma, Consuelo suggested. She'll come to us, I replied. She can see we're here. But time passed and Paloma didn't approach. I saw her in the center of the hall, surrounded by young men and women in expensive clothes. Beside them stood adults, probably their parents. They laughed, clinked glasses, took selfies. Dad, she sees us, Leandro said quietly. Why isn't she coming? I noticed it too. Paloma glanced in our direction several times but immediately turned away, continuing her conversation with her friends. An hour went by. I couldn't stand it anymore and went to her. The bouquet, wilted from the heat, trembled in my hands. Paloma, I called softly. She turned. In her eyes flashed fear, then something like shame. Grandpa, she whispered, you came. Of course we came. It's your graduation, my dear. I held out the bouquet. Congratulations. Now you're a doctor. Next to Paloma stood a young man in an expensive suit with gold cufflinks and a Swiss watch. Paloma, will you introduce us? He asked with a friendly smile. And then I heard the words that etched themselves into my memory forever. This. Paloma hesitated, looked at me, then at her friend. These are my distant relatives. From the provinces, they came to congratulate me. The young man nodded politely but with complete indifference. Oh, I see. Nice to meet you. Leandro and Consuelo came up to us. Consuelo wanted to hug her daughter, but Paloma slightly stepped aside. Palomita, we're so proud of you, her mother said, ignoring her coldness. A diploma with honors. You're amazing. Thank you, Mom, Paloma answered dryly, glancing around nervously. I saw how uneasy my granddaughter was with our presence, how embarrassed she felt in front of her wealthy friends, and I understood everything. Paloma, I said softly, maybe it's better if we go. What? She flinched. No, of course. Stay if you want. But you don't want us to stay. An awkward silence fell. Paloma turned pale. Grandpa, it's just the atmosphere here. You understand? Very official, very businesslike. And all these people, she broke off. We don't belong, I finished for her. Grandpa, that's not it. Then what is it? Paloma quickly glanced around, making sure her friends weren't listening, and lowered her voice. Listen, you must understand. I'm about to get a job in a very prestigious clinic. Here, connections, reputation, image, they're everything. And her eyes flicked over our modest clothes. And you, well, you see what kind of people are here. We see, I nodded. It would really be better if you left. Don't shame me with your appearance in front of all these. She stopped herself, but it was too late. Leandro turned as white as chalk. Consuelo covered her mouth with her hand, tears filling her eyes. Paloma, her father began. Papa, please, she whispered. You have to understand. Here the rules are different. If you really want me to succeed. I looked at my granddaughter and didn't recognize her. Where was the girl who cried when I sold the house? Who promised not to let me down? Who wanted to become a doctor, to help people? All right, my girl, I said quietly. I turned and walked away from the university. Behind me, I heard Leandro's strained breathing, Consuelo's quiet sobs. In the lobby of the university, I stopped to catch my breath. My heart hurt, not from fatigue, but from my granddaughter's betrayal. Consuelo wept, leaning against the wall. Leandro stood beside her, fists clenched. Dad, he said softly, how could she? After everything you did for her. She could, I answered. It means we raised her wrong. No, Consuelo tore herself from the wall. She was a good girl, kind, compassionate. She was, and now she's what she's become. We headed for the exit. I just wanted to leave that place as quickly as possible, where we had been so humiliated, to forget this day like a bad dream. But at the doorway, someone called out, "Grandpa! Grandpa, wait!" I turned around. A young woman of about 25 was running toward us in a simple gray dress with disheveled hair and tear-stained eyes. "Please, wait," she cried. "Are you Paloma's grandfather?" "Yes," I said, surprised. "And who are you, girl?" She caught up to us, breathing heavily. "My name is Estrella Ramirez. I studied with Paloma. We were friends in the early years." "Were?" Then Estrella waved her hand. "Then she found other friends, the rich ones." Behind her, more people were coming out of the building. I counted about a dozen. Young men and women, an older woman in a white coat, a middle-aged man in glasses. "Is that them?" Someone from the group asked. "Yes, that's Paloma's grandfather," Estrella said. "The very one she told us about." The older woman came up to me and held out her hand. "Rosario Escobar, head of the Department of Therapy, and you are the grandfather who sold his house for his granddaughter's education?" "How do you know?" Leandra was astonished. "Paloma told us," said the man in glasses. "In the first year, she told everyone that story. We admired what you did." "In the first year, she cried when she told us about the house," Estrella added. "She said her grandfather was her hero, that she would definitely become a good doctor to justify your sacrifice." "And what happened later?" asked Consuelo. The students exchanged glances. Rosario Escobar shook her head. "Then she got into another crowd, the Golden Youth, children of politicians, owners of medical corporations, big businessmen. They accepted her into their circle," the student in glasses continued, "but on one condition." "What condition?" I asked tensely. "To forget the past," Estrella said sadly, "to invent a new biography." Paloma started saying that her family were successful entrepreneurs, that her grandfather was a former factory director, that the house was sold not out of need, but because you bought a better one in another city. "We tried to reason with her," added another girl. "We told her it was wrong to renounce her family, and she answered that we didn't understand the laws of the big world. She said that in elite medicine, background matters," continued another student, "that you have to move in the right circles or you'll never achieve success." Rosario Escobar stepped closer to me. "You know what I'll tell you? I've worked in the medical university for 40 years. I've seen thousands of students, hundreds of stories, and I've realized one thing. A true doctor is not the one who comes from a wealthy family or has connections. A true doctor is the one who understands the value of human life, the value of sacrifice, the value of love." "And does Paloma understand that?" I asked quietly. The professor was silent for a moment. "I'm afraid not. She knows medicine brilliantly, passes exams with excellence, but she lacks the most important thing, a soul." "She's become like a robot," said Estrella. "She does everything right, knows everything, but feels nothing, as if she's empty inside." "And do you know what's the saddest part?" added the man in glasses, who turned out to be a lecturer. "Your story inspired many students. They'll remember it all their lives, and the very one it was done for. She forgot it." "She didn't forget," Estrella objected. "She's ashamed. She's ashamed to admit to her new friends that her grandfather is a simple pensioner, that her family lives modestly. It's easier to invent a pretty lie." I listened and felt a strange mix of bitterness and gratitude. On the one hand, it hurt to hear of my granddaughter's betrayal. On the other, I understood that my sacrifice had not been in vain. These young people remembered the story. It had taught them something. "And what about you?" I asked. "Where will you work?" "I already work," Estrella replied, "as a pediatrician in a district clinic in Puebla. The pay is small, but I like the job." "I'll be a surgeon in a regional hospital," said the student in glasses. "My colleagues are surprised. Why go to the provinces when I could stay in the capital, get into a private clinic? But I say, some things are more important than money." "You taught us to understand what true sacrifice is," added another girl. When parents are ready to give everything for their children, we remember your story and try to be worthy of such trust. Your granddaughter received her diploma thanks to you, said the lecturer, but we received a lesson in humanity. And you know, I think the second is more important than the first. At that moment, Paloma ran out of the building. Seeing me surrounded by her former classmates, she froze. What's going on here? She asked, coming closer. We are seeing your grandfather off, said Rosario Escobar sternly. The man who made a sacrifice for your education. Paloma turned pale. Dr. Escobar, please don't. I must, the professor raised her voice. The truth must be spoken. This man sold his house, the family nest, so you could study. And you are ashamed of him. You don't understand. We understand everything, Paloma. Estrella was indignant to the point of trembling. We understand that you got your diploma thanks to your grandfather's sacrifice, and instead of gratitude, you show betrayal. It's not betrayal, it's necessity. In medicine, connections matter. Reputation matters. In medicine, human dignity matters, said Rosario Escobar sharply, which unfortunately you lack. Paloma looked around at everyone present. Her former friends stared at her with condemnation and disappointment. The teachers shook their heads and I stood silent, still clutching the wilted flowers in my hands. Grandpa, she said softly. Say nothing, Paloma, I interrupted her. You've already said everything. I paused, gathering my thoughts. Do you know what I realized today? I didn't sell the house in vain, but not for you. What do you mean? Paloma didn't understand. For them, I nodded toward Estrella and her friends. Your story taught them to be human. They remember what sacrifice is, what true medicine is. But you forgot. Paloma stood in silence, not knowing what to say. Goodbye, granddaughter, I said. Good luck with your new friends. I turned and walked away from the university. Leandro and Consuelo followed, as did the whole group of students and professors. Grandpa, Estrella called after me. May I write you letters? Tell you about my work? Of course, child, I'd be very glad. And me too, said the student in glasses. You're like a real grandfather to me. Can we come visit you in the summer? Asked another girl. During the holidays? Come, our home is small, but there will be room for everyone. I looked back one last time. Paloma stood alone at the entrance to the university. Her new wealthy friends had stayed inside celebrating, while her old friends had come out to walk with the man she had betrayed. Dad, doesn't it hurt? Leandro asked quietly. The house, the money, the hopes. It doesn't hurt, son. I just thought I was investing in one doctor, but it turned out to be 10. A good deal. The first letter from Estrella arrived just a week after graduation. Dear Grandpa, forgive me for calling you that, but for me you're like family now. I'm writing from Puebla, where I've started working as a pediatrician. Yesterday was my first day at work, and do you know what happened? A 3-year-old girl was brought to me with a fever of nearly 40. Her mother, a single parent, working as a cleaner, with barely any money. And when I saw the fear in her eyes, her gratitude that I was carefully examining her child, I remembered your words. That medicine is service to people. Thank you for this lesson. Yours, Estrella. I read the letter several times, then sat down to write a reply. I hadn't felt such joy from simple human words in a long time. A month later came a letter from Marcelino, the very student in glasses. Don Silvestre, I've started working as a surgeon in Veracruz, in the regional hospital. The pay is small, the conditions aren't great, but I like the work. The other day we had a complicated operation. Appendicitis in a 7-year-old boy with complications. His parents, simple laborers, were terribly worried. And when the surgery succeeded, when I saw the father's tears of joy, I remembered your story. How you worried for Paloma when she had appendicitis. How real medicine isn't about money, but about saving lives. Yours, Marcelino. By the end of summer, I had a regular correspondence with 10 young doctors. All of them worked in ordinary hospitals and clinics, treated ordinary people for modest salaries, and all remembered my story. Strange thing, I once said to Leandro, I now have 10 doctor grandchildren, and my real granddaughter. Don't think about her, Dad. She made her choice. But I couldn't help thinking. I asked the young doctors if they had news of Paloma. They were reluctant to tell me, but they told me. Paloma had gotten a job in an elite private clinic in the center of the capital, Premium Medical. She treated the children of wealthy parents, charged $200 per consultation, and earned more in a week than her former classmates made in a month. I saw her recently, Marcelino wrote. We bumped into each other in the metro. I said hello, but she didn't recognize me, or pretended not to. She walked past as if I were a lamppost. I heard from mutual acquaintances that she's doing great, Estrella wrote. Career, money, status. She rents an expensive apartment, rides taxis, shops in brand-name stores. Only for some reason, she doesn't look happy. I met her at a medical conference, another graduate wrote. She gave a presentation, very professional. Afterward, I went to congratulate her. She was polite but cold, as if we had never studied together. And then, a year after graduation, something happened that no one expected. The phone rang late one November evening. I was about to go to bed when it rang. Abuelo? I heard a familiar voice. Paloma. Grandpa, it's me. Can I come home? In my granddaughter's voice there was something new. Not pride or arrogance, but weariness and pain. Of course you can, my dear. You're still our girl. Abuelo, will you forgive me? I was silent for a moment. Forgive you for what? You're grown now. You answer for your own choices. For what I said that day at graduation. For turning away from you. Come, Palomita, we'll talk. Paloma arrived 2 days later. I met her at the bus station and could hardly recognize her. She had lost a lot of weight, looked exhausted. No expensive clothes, just plain jeans, a simple jacket, a backpack on her shoulders. Abuelo, she said softly when she saw me. Hello, Palomita. We rode home in silence. Paloma looked out the window at the familiar places and wept, quietly, almost imperceptibly. At home, she was met by Leandro and Consuelo, reserved, cautious, but without anger. How are you, daughter? Her mother asked. Bad, Mama. Very bad. Over tea, Paloma told her story, how she had worked for a year in an elite clinic, treating the children of wealthy parents for enormous sums of money. Do you know what the rules are there, Abuelo? If a child has a runny nose and the parents are willing to pay, you prescribe a full workup for $1,000, tests, ultrasounds, MRIs, anything at all. The main thing is that the bill is bigger. And you did that? I asked quietly. I did, Paloma admitted. I thought it was normal. That's how private medicine works. And then what happened? Paloma fell silent, then spoke slowly, struggling to find the words. Then they brought in a girl, 7 years old, appendicitis, just like I once had. Her parents were ordinary people. The father a laborer, the mother a shop clerk. They only had enough money for the simplest surgery in a public hospital. And the clinic's management said, either the full package for $3,000 or go elsewhere. The girl was suffering, time was running out, and the parents didn't know what to do. What did you do? At first, nothing. I thought, it's not my business, there are public hospitals. But then I looked at that girl and remembered myself. I remembered how you worried, how Mama cried, how Dr. Aurelio saved me. Paloma broke down in tears. And I couldn't send her away. I told the parents I would operate for free. And they fired you? Worse, the management said I was violating the clinic's concept, that if I wanted to do charity work, I had no place in elite medicine, that the clinic's reputation was more important than one doctor's sentimentality. I see. And do you know what happened then? Paloma raised her head. The girl was operated on anyway, in an ordinary district hospital. Estrella works there. When I found out, I went to visit. The girl was healthy, the parents were happy, and Estrella said to me, you know I do this in memory of your grandfather, who taught us what real sacrifice means? I said nothing. Abuelo, Paloma went on, that's when I realized what I'd done, that you didn't sell the house for me to become rich and successful. You wanted me to become a human being, and I became a monster. I went over to my granddaughter and hugged her. Not a monster, Palomita. You just lost your way. But how do I fix it now? My former classmates despise me. In elite medicine, I'm an outcast. And in an ordinary hospital, they probably won't take me. My reputation is stained. Try, I said quietly. Talk to Estrella. Ask her to help you find work in a simple clinic. You think she'll help? After everything, Estrella is a good girl and a real doctor, and real doctors help anyone who needs help. Estrella did help. Within a month, Paloma was working as a pediatrician in a district clinic in a nearby city. The salary was 10 times less than in the private clinic, but Paloma was happy. Abuelo, she told me on a visit home, I finally understand what real medicine is. Yesterday, they brought me a boy with bronchitis. His mother is a single parent, running herself ragged just to make ends meet. And when I saw her tired, grateful eyes when I realized I could truly help, I remembered Dr. Aurelio's words. A doctor doesn't treat a disease, but a human being. And you don't regret the career you gave up, I asked. Do you know what a career is? Last week I saved a 3-year-old girl. She had pneumonia her parents mistook for a simple cold. If they had waited a little longer, Paloma paused. That's a career, a life saved. And money? There's enough. I don't buy expensive dresses anymore or dine in restaurants, but I sleep peacefully, and I'm not ashamed to look in the mirror. 6 months later, Paloma brought us news. She had been accepted into a doctoral program at the Regional Medical Institute's pediatric department. I'll be studying problems of children from low-income families, she told us, eyes shining. I want to design a program so that such children receive quality medical care, regardless of their parents' income. That's wonderful, I said. Then the house wasn't sold in vain. Abuelo, when I defend my dissertation and start earning decent money, I'll definitely buy us a new house. Better than the old one. No need, Palomita. I'm fine here. But I should? You don't owe anyone anything. Better spend the money on your little patients. Buy medicine for those who can't afford it. Help families in need. That will be the best gratitude. Paloma hugged me. You know what I realized? You didn't just sell a house back then. You showed me what real values are. What matters more? Walls or people? What's worth more? Money or human life? Another 2 years passed. By then I had a huge family. Not by blood, but by spirit. Estrella, Marcelino, and 8 other young doctors had become true grandchildren to me. They wrote regularly, came to visit, asked advice on important matters. And Paloma defended her doctoral dissertation and founded a charity fund to help children from low-income families. She still worked in the district clinic, but now also headed a program of free medical care for the needy. Abuelo, she told me during one of her visits, do you remember what you said at my graduation? That a house can be sold, but love can't? I remember. Well, now I understand what you meant. That house was just bricks and wood. But your love, it lives in every child we save, in every family we help, in every young doctor who remembers your story and strives to be better. That day, 5 of my adopted grandchildren, young doctors from different cities, came to visit. Around the table sat one big warm family. Estrella, now head of a pediatric department, talked about a new children's health screening program. Marcelino, who had become one of the best surgeons in the region, shared plans to open a microsurgery center. Others had their own successes, defending dissertations, opening new departments, receiving awards for saving lives. You know, kid, I said after everyone had spoken, I often think about that house I sold. It stood in one place for more than 100 years and sheltered one family. But the money from its sale now shelters hundreds of families. Through the work of the doctors it helped raise. That's the best investment in history, Marcelino laughed. And you know what's most important, Paloma added. That house taught us all to understand what real sacrifice is, what it means to give up what's most precious for the one you love. And that love is not words but actions, Estrella said. And that true wealth isn't money, but the good you do, added another doctor. I sat at the table surrounded by these young people whom my story had taught to be better, and I realized I was rich, not with money. I still had little of that, but with love, gratitude, and the respect of people who remembered what I had done. That evening, after the guests had left, I sat in the kitchen of our small apartment with Paloma, reflecting on my life. Abuelo, my granddaughter said softly, have you ever regretted selling the house? I was silent for a long time before answering. You know, Palomita, the only things one can regret are the things left undone. And I did what I thought was right. And though the result wasn't what I had planned, it turned out good. How not what you planned? I thought I would raise one good doctor. Instead, it turned out to be 10. I thought I would help one granddaughter. Instead, I helped many young people understand what sacrifice and love mean. And me? Paloma asked quietly. I let you down. You lost your way, but you found yourself again. And that's what matters. Outside, the autumn night pressed against the windows. In the next room, Leandro and Consuelo were asleep. And in the house reigned silence and peace. The kind that comes not from expensive things, but from a clear conscience. Abuelo, Paloma said before bed, thank you for the house, for my education, for your patience, but most of all, for teaching me what real love is. You're welcome, my dear. And you know what? When I have children, I'll tell them the story of the grandfather who sold his house for his granddaughter's dream. So they'll understand. Family isn't walls, but people. And that the most precious gifts are the ones given from the heart. I smiled. That meant the story would live on, passed from generation to generation, reminding that love is measured not in words, but in deeds. A house can be sold for money, but love, kindness, and humanity cannot be bought at any price. They are passed from heart to heart, making the world better and kinder. And in this lies the true value of any sacrifice.